What's up, people? I'm gonna say welcome to week 7, but I'm posting this actually at the end of week 5, so really early. So this could be week 5 for you. You might be watching this during the week 6 break where you didn't technically have to do anything, but you chose to watch this early, or you could be watching this actually at the beginning of week 7. Either one's fine. What's crazy though is that if regardless, this is week 7. This is the last. This is like the last roll lecture that I'm like going to be going over anything new. And by new, I don't even really mean like new skills. I'm just going to be going over SA3, which is after SA3, you're done with this class. That's pretty exciting. I mean, lecture 8, I don't really have anything to go over because you're just writing your paper. So I might be reviewing some stuff, but there actually might only just be a live lecture. I'll probably just do that. I'll probably just be doing a live lecture for a week 8 to just answer a few questions. And that's probably it. Okay. So I'm hoping that a lot of you will watch this now early, and then you'll get your papers done early. I can grade your papers early, and you can just call it a summer, and that's it. And then you can enjoy the rest of your time. So that would be cool. That would be cool. Okay, so let's look at our document, our assignments and due date stuff. Okay. Um, Theoretically, you're watching this after you've already submitted SA2. Okay, so there's that. I do the whole thing. All right. You could be watching this after week 6, or going to week 6. Technically, it's already completed because there's something to do that's required during week 6. Okay. So here we are. We're talking about SA3 really. I'm gonna review some stuff, but it's pretty much all the same. I'm gonna discuss SA3. And actually, probably in the last lecture, I might go ahead and record a lecture 8 and talk about some of the stuff that you did in SA2 that you don't want to do in SA3. Okay. This lecture we are going to right after I talk about discuss SA3, you're gonna start working on your essay. You are going to need to have finished reading your independent novel. Hopefully, you finish that over the summer break week. You're gonna, of course, watch this lecture. You're gonna watch the film adaptation of the novel that you read. Hopefully, you didn't pick a novel that was adapted into like a series where you have to watch like 6 episodes of or like a mini series. Then you can work on the outline. I'm making the outline extra credit. In fact, I haven't even put a Dropbox in yet, which I will by the time this video is up. The outline, I will post an outline template, but you are not required to turn in an outline. Okay. I want you to start writing outlines on your own. Just in general. Actually, I don't think I even no. I'm not going to post an outline template. That's it. I want you to be doing these outlines on your own. Okay. Like from this point forward, you should be able to outline your own essays. So I'm going to go over the structure of the essay, and then you can create your own outline and submit that outline for extra credit. Okay. But in the future, in your future courses, you should just write an outline. Um, I all through college and graduate school, I wrote my own outlines. Even now, I try to get papers published. I write outlines for what I'm going to discuss. I write outlines for my lesson plans. I mean, you should always I have an outline for the day, just the summer day, what I'm going to do with my kids. Okay, so you should just always have an outline. So for SA3, I'm gonna repeat. I'm not posting a SA3 outline template. I'm going to go over the essay and how it should flow in the PowerPoint. And then from that, if you want extra credit, you can create your own outline and fill in all the necessary information that you normally would when you are prepping for an essay, which again, I always do this. I always made an outline and I include my quotes in my outline. And that way I knew I could get everything that together that I want to discuss, so then I could tackle one paragraph at a time when I wrote it. Okay. So it'd be great if you wrote your own outline and you submitted it, and I'll give you extra credit for it. Okay. All right. So let's look at what we're doing this week. I'm going to show you week 7. Okay. Essay 3 adaptations notes. This is where you'll find the notes. I will go ahead and create this. Let's see, this assignment. This is the extra credit essay 3 outline. Okay. Make your own. All right. Due date is I'm gonna go over to the PowerPoint, but I'm pretty sure the due date is the normal 14th by 5 a.m. 5 a.m. And I'm not really. I'm probably not even gonna grade these until like I'm just gonna give you credit for them right before I put in final grades. Okay, so I'm just rewarding you for doing it. So there we go. So you can see that. Oh, make sure it's not. There you go. It's visible. All right. PowerPoint I'm about to go over is found right here. Okay. Let's get this thing going. All right, essay 3 adaptations. The final essay. What? All right, this is what you've been working towards all of these last several weeks, reading your novels. Okay, reading your novels and then watching the adaptation of the novel. So, essay 3 requirements: 5 full pages, then your works cited page. Okay, 5 full pages, then your works cited page. Thematic analysis using lenses. You will be comparing and contrasting changes in the film/book that alter interpretations, themes, and characters. Comparing and contrasting changes in the film and book that alter interpretation, themes, and characters. What that means, go over. Okay. If you just compare and contrast parts of the book and novel without analyzing the deeper significance of these changes or non-changes, then you will lose significant credit. You can't just point out, oh, that's similar and that's different. You got to discuss, why is it important? Why are those changes important now? To how does that change the theme? Okay. How does that and you're not necessarily even saying that isn't like it's a bad change, but you can say how this is a change and this also changes the theme of the book. You will need to integrate into your essay a critical lens or philosophical perspective. All right, so you're still going to be applying philosophical or critical lenses to these changes, to your themes, to these characters. All right, you're going to have 5 sources on your work page. 5. 2 secondary sources apply to your analysis. 1 secondary source on what makes a good adaptation. All right, and then 2 primary sources. So your 5 sources, 2 of those is just, one's your book and one's the film. Okay, so there's really only 3 secondary sources. Okay, 3 outside sources. All right, so here is your essay 3 outline, but I'm not making this document. So for the extra credit, you can make your own based upon this. All right. First, you have your introduction. What is the book, film you read and watched? Does the series have the same name as the book? If it was a series, how many episodes are there? What is the basic plot of the story? Is it popular, well-known, interesting facts? Again, this doesn't need to be a paragraph. When you're writing your outline, if you do the extra credit outline, you don't need to write a paragraph. You can just, when you turn your introduction into your outline into an essay, eventually it will be a paragraph. Okay, but maybe you can just bullet point some of these things. First paragraph, body paragraph, which is your comparison analysis. You apply a critical lens. All right. And I put lenses, but you can just do one. Just do one lens. Just do one lens. Okay. Um, or philosophy if you want to. Okay. So like sometimes they have similar, like both the book and the series have this in common. They can both be interpreted with a feminist lens. Um, or it could be a philosophy. They both have an existential theme. They both have a Marxist theme. They you can apply a queer theory analysis to both the film and the book. All right, that doesn't change. That's similar. They still have that one thing in common. You can't say they both have a gay character. Okay. But like, the analysis is something that's not stated. It's not stated. All right. It's interpreted. And I'm gonna go over an example. All right. And then you have the contrast analysis. And again, you're gonna apply your critical lenses or apply a philosophical interpretation. All right. The second is this is different though. While the book emphasizes more of a feminist, has a feminist element to it, the movie completely takes away the feminist element. While the book has a moralistic theme to it in this one character, all right, the film gets rid of that character, so therefore it loses that moralistic theme. All right, there can be multiple themes in a book in a film. All right, there's not just we're not talking about this has to be the one overarching theme. All right, one character can present one perspective on a certain topic or theme. All right, and that character can be in the book, but then completely deleted from the film, and then you can discuss how like that changes sort of the way that we interpret the whole piece. And then adaptation discussion. In your opinion, what makes a good adaptation? All right, and what or hold on, this is slightly different because you're going to find in a moment you're going to find well, I'll go more into a little bit. This is just a basic. Okay, in your opinion, is the film a good adaptation or not? Not whether or not you liked it better or not. Okay, like the film, the you can say it's the book, the film version makes it more interesting. It will be subjective. You might find it to be a good adaptation. Other people might not find it to be a good adaptation. So we'll go into that more later. All right, and then conclusion is which one did you like better and why? Ultimately, what did you think was a better experience? The book, and that does not mean like reading versus watching. It means the story. Which one had a better story? Okay. So I'm gonna give you some examples. All right. I'm gonna compare and contrast Jaws, the book, and Jaws, the film. Okay. Here we go. So comparison. I would say that they both have an anti-capitalistic sort of Marxist theme to them. All right, both the book and the actual film. All right, this is interpretive. This is not ever stated. So I would say the film and novel can both be interpreted through a Marxist lens about the problems with capitalism. The shark, so the shark is going to be my symbol. The shark represents how capitalism doesn't care about human lives. And when a society is founded on the idea of consumption and competition, that many people will fall victim to this capitalistic dog eat dog world. The mayor is only focused on the revenue pulled in by tourists coming to his town for summer vacation, while he doesn't care at all about their safety, right? So that's the beginning of my conversation about the comparison for Jaws. Okay. And then I would need to have a secondary source for this. All right. Now, my next body paragraph could be a contrast. All right. I'm going to contrast Hooper and with it, and I'm going to bring up the theme of moralism. Moralism. So Hooper is a character that's in both the film and the book. He changes. He's different in the book than he is in the film. Or I guess vice versa. He's different in the film than he is in the book because the film came second. The character of Hooper changes between the novel and the film, in that he dies in the book but lives in the film. But that's not even, but there's a bigger purpose to this. But an even bigger twist is that in the book, he has an affair with Brody's, the main character and sheriff of the town's wife, with Brody's wife. The book seems to take on a moralistic theme by using this affair to justify Hooper's death, which the scene from the book is in the film, but the outcome is quite different. It is in one of the pinnacle scenes where Hooper goes into the water in his metal cage. Only that in the film, he comes back up. While in the book, he isn't so lucky. In the film, he doesn't have an affair. In the film, he doesn't have an affair, and he survives to the end. So a moralistic analysis would instruct to the readers that if you are going to commit such acts as seducing another man's wife, then you might end up in the stomach of a great white. All right. So I'm applying a moralistic philosophy sort of interpretation to this. I am saying that Hooper's outcome changes. This is a contrast. He dies in the book, but he dies because he is a sinner, because he had an affair with Brody's wife. Okay, he led her astray. He didn't care about. He was much younger. She's a cougar. All right, and so he dies because sinners get what's coming to him. All right. But in the movie, they took out the affair, but made him much more likable. And he becomes a friend to Brody, not a competition. And he lives. All right. That's a change in the story, but it's also a change in sort of a theme. Okay. Then I would also still need a secondary source. All right. So, in for your research on the film and the book, okay. I will say, and I think I've already allowed you to use Medium, but I just want to restate that you can use Medium in this, okay? But you still can't use Spark Notes, Wikipedia, Cliff Notes, sources that do not have an author. You can't use like interpretation essays. All right, you can't use things that are deliberately meant to I don't know, to give you interpretations. Things that like some people use these websites that are like literatureanalysis.com. None of that kind of stuff. Okay. So I'm gonna go back over supportive research versus topical research. Okay. So supportive research is research that directly supports your analysis because the author shares your perspective. So you might be able to find articles that are actually about your interpretation of the actual book and the actual film. So again, if I'm writing if I'm applying a Marxist interpretation to Jaws, all right, then I could use this article called "Into the Jaws of Capitalism: How Spielberg's masterpiece can be interpreted as a critique of American capitalism," okay, by Samir Ansari, and I could use this quote. In Benchley's novel, Mayor Vaughan's opaque corruption is the main aspect of this character, and the marriage between greed, corruption, and capitalism aligns political power with the pursuit of profit at all costs. Literally, this article is about what I'm actually writing about, how I'm applying a Marxist interpretation, and how both the film and the book share this same theme of the corruption of capitalism. But I might not be able to find research that actually is about what I am arguing, and that's okay. You can also find research that indirectly supports your analysis by applying the research to your topic. So if I'm doing a moralistic contrast, I'm saying that the book has more of a moralistic theme than the film. The topic is about how you interpret the film Jaws to be a moralist book that punishes bad behavior. Okay, well, I could find this article, Why Horror Movies Are Good for You, okay, by Paul Donnet. And now there is a picture of Jaws. He doesn't actually talk about Jaws in this actual article. He just has it on the cover. So, but I could find this quote that says, horror films function as cautionary tales, strongly suggesting that what goes around often comes around. I could use that in my paper to argue that Hooper had it coming to him. He had an adulterous, sinful, betraying affair with the wife of a supposed friend of his, and he paid the ultimate cost. All right, and he died. So I could use this cautionary tale, suggesting what goes around often comes around. Teach the moral lesson that if you don't want to be eaten by a shark, don't sleep with your friend's wife. Okay. Then third body paragraph is what makes a good adaptation. All right. And what I want you to do is I want you to find an article that discusses adaptations in general, like what makes a good adaptation. Okay. So find an author who's talking about adaptations just in general. What should an adaptation are good adaptations ones that are word for word, just like the film or the original source, I mean the book, or is a good adaptation something that takes the story and evolves it? All right. You can find a critic that you agree with or that you don't really care what they say. You just find a critic who's talking about what goes into a good adaptation. I guess you could also do the opposite. Maybe you find an author who writes about bad adaptations, and from that you derive if this is what they say is a bad adaptation. The complete opposite of that is a good adaptation. So this must be what makes a good adaptation, and then you apply that to your film. So apply what the article says about good adaptations. Write an argument critiquing the film. Is it a good adaptation or a bad adaptation based upon the critic that you found? Okay. And so I'm going to slightly change this. I need to update because I think the wording on this outline is slightly wrong. It's not in your opinion, okay? In the opinion of a critic, what makes a good adaptation? Then here, would this critic find this film or series to be a good adaptation? All right. So number 4 is still focused on paragraph 4 is focused on a critic. Okay, what a critic has to say. All right. Now you might find an article where the critic is already like, look, I don't find this to be a good adaptation, and this is why. All right, and so you're just kind of then also communicating what they say about it, which is fine. All right. Write an argument critiquing the film. Is it a good adaptation or is it a bad adaptation? You do not have to agree with the quote you use. Okay. All right. So like you might not think now, this is your opinion if you are applying it, okay? But you can also be third person. All right, so instead of should be, it said can be first person. Or this paragraph can also be third person, okay? If talking about the critic's perspective. All right. I'm a little bit flexible with this one, as long as you do have a quote by a critic. All right, talking about it. If you want to talk more about it, if you think it's a good adaptation or not, you can. The only problem is that I don't want it to bleed too much over into the next paragraph. The conclusion is about you deciding which one's better. Okay. So I want these two paragraphs to feel distinctively different. So for example, here we have after Hulu premiered its adaptation of Little Fires Everywhere, the author of the book, Celeste Ng, gave an interview to Cleveland Magazine, the city where the story takes place, where when asked about how she felt about her book being adapted, she said, What I was really concerned with was not that they faithfully reproduced the book beat for beat. In my experience, the most successful adaptations aren't necessarily the most faithful. What I wanted was for them to be true to the spirit of the book and to the characters I created. Ing goes on to say that she felt Hulu achieved this, but I disagree. I felt the book and the series were way too closely aligned, so much to the point that it made the show boring. There was very little in the sense of blah, 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 blah. Okay. This is more of a personal, whether or not it's a good adaptation. All right. So, but you definitely, and I guess in the quote, it says here a quote from a critic, but it can also be from the author himself. I mean, if you read Stephen King's story, Stephen King has tons of opinions on his adaptations. All right. So, like, look, I want this paragraph to be about adaptations. Okay. You gotta have a quote about an adaptation, about what makes a good or bad adaptation from somebody. All right. And then you can apply it. You can talk about whether you think that critic is right, whether that critic would agree with you. Maybe the critic isn't talking about the film that you in the book that you read. And so you could say, all right, well, they're not talking about this film, but based upon what they think is a good adaptation, I believe that they would enjoy this adaptation because blah, 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 if it's these things that they said. Or based upon what they said about adaptations in general, I don't think they would like this adaptation because based upon what they said, blah, 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 blah. Or you can say, this is what they say makes a good adaptation, which is true. And this film, I don't think is really that great of an adaptation. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Um, but whatever you say here should be um, distinctively different than from what you say in the last paragraph. Okay. So again, like you can use a quote by someone who is just talking in general about adaptations. It have to be about what you are actually watching or what you read. Okay. As long as what they're saying is a general comment about adaptations. I could use the same quote if I want to discuss The Walking Dead. Okay. Even though I'm writing about The Walking Dead, I could still use this quote by Celeste, this author, when she talks about an adaptation. All right. So this would be a sample paragraph. When thinking about whether The Walking Dead is a good adaptation, for me, I think about what Celeste, the author of Little Fires Everywhere, said about the process of adapting her own novel to the screen. She said, what I was really concerned with was not that they faithfully reproduced the book beat for beat. In my experience, the most successful adaptations aren't necessarily the most faithful. What I wanted was for them to be true to the spirit of the book and to the characters I created. I feel this is the same point of view the producers had in adapting The Walking Dead. They took all of the same chess pieces, characters, conflict, events, but changed the order, who does what, and what were the outcomes. Characters like Andrea and Dale, who were hooking up in the comics, are now having a father-daughter relationship in the show. Characters who die earlier in the comics, like Jane, die later in the series, and vice versa. I found it to be a lot of fun watching and reading this series because they were both similar enough in spirit and characterization to be familiar, but things played out differently enough to be unexpected and exciting. Okay. All right. So this is, the type of conversation you're having for this one. You're critically analyzing the adaptation, not the stories. All right, but the adaptations, which is slightly different than the last paragraph. Ooh, okay. Well, I don't have a slide about the last paragraph. The last paragraph is just simply, which one did you enjoy better? Okay. They might have, so like for example, you know, um, they might have similar themes. Or I'm sorry, the adaptations and the book might be very similar, but they still might have slightly different ways of tweaking things. And then you can decide which one was a better story or not. Okay. So like for example, like Cold Mountain. Okay. Um, Cold Mountain, the film, I felt was a better story overall because it cut out a bunch of unnecessary scenes from the book, and I felt the book was slightly more boring, and the film did a better job of streamlining everything and making it a little bit more action driven and exciting. Okay, so overall, I think the storyline of the film, the way it was changed, was better. But then, like, if I was talking about something like something like The Road by Cormac McCarthy, I would say the book was way better than the film because the book really captures the desperation that the father has for his son because you get all this internal monologue and you get all these emotions that in the film it's silent. You don't get it because it's all like inside. So the book is a better experience of the story because so much of what's happening is unsaid. And it's hard to communicate that in a film. All right. So I would say that the story is a better story, I thought, through reading it. Even if the adaptation was a good adaptation by standards of critics. Okay. All right. SA3 dates. Outline, extra credit not required. Due July 14th. Paper due July 19th. There will be no delay in grading SA3. Okay. No delay. Grades will be posted by Tuesday, July 22nd. So look, the week that you're finishing up the essay, I'm out of town. Okay. I'm out of town, which is why the paper is due the 19th because I'm not going to be grading them before the 19th. But I will be spending all day, Sunday and Monday, grading your papers. All right. I only have 40 of y'all, which normally I have like 80 students. Okay. So I'm just going to sit down these 2 days and just grade, 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 grade. Okay. Again, the main things I'm grading for is that, use of quotes, your discussion's on track, you are integrating quotes, that you're citing your sources, MLA formatting, works cited page, all that's correct. That you are clearly talking about a comparison, a contrast that is deep, that deals with the contrast comparison are important because they apply to the theme, characterization, the meaning, the interpretation of the story is important. That you're talking about a critic and you are deciding which one's better. Okay. Those are important, and that it is clearly, 4.5 pages long. All right. But I'm also grading fast. So, like as long as those paragraphs are on topic of those things, you're good. As long as you are comparing, you're finding a comparison, you're finding a contrast, you're talking about why those matter. You're talking about whether, what a critic has to say about adaptations. You're talking about which one you thought was better personally, then you're all good. Okay. I'm giving myself 2 days to grade those. And then on Monday and Tuesday, and then Tuesday, I am I'm making sure everything's graded. I'm applying your extra credit and I'm posting the grades. Okay. Um, so if grades end in a 9, I'm gonna bump you up. If they end in an 8, I'm not necessarily bumping you up. So please don't I don't want any emails saying, well, I have an 88, can I get a 90? I have a 78, can I get an 80? When I'm done, the grade you get is the grade you get. Okay. You can use week 6 if you're watching this before week 7. You can use week 6 to get makeup work done if you need to. All right. I always say that there's no late work, but I generally put grades in for everything that's turned in. I might apply, I might take off 30, 40 points for being late, but it's worth a shot. Okay. Alrighty. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope all of this made sense. And Let me know if you have any questions. All right. Goodbye.